9-year-olds have a particular way of seeing through the adult world's pretense. They are old enough to understand the gap between what people say and what they do, young enough not to have learned to soften their observations with the courtesy that comes with age. Bella Hernandez sat down with her mother in front of a camera and did something that children are rarely asked to do, or perhaps are asked to do, but find no safe space to actually answer. She told the truth about her father. The show was called The Grandma is the Baby.
You ever tell him how you feel like that?
No. Really, no, because, I don't like to tell.
Part of Joseline Hernandez's family reality programming, the kind of project that documents the everyday negotiations of blended families and the weight that children carry when they love people who don't always show up the way that love requires. Joseline asked her daughter a simple question. How do you feel about your dad, Stevie J, and your relationship with him? Bella's answer did not come with the caution that most children learn to use when discussing their parents. Instead, she kept it real, as the footage was later titled. She kept it so real that it became the kind of thing that people share and discuss, because it said something that nobody else in the family seemed willing to say out loud. When asked if she ever tells Stevie J what she thinks about his parenting, Bonnie was direct. She said she doesn't really tell him because she thinks he already knows what he needs to work on. And then she added something that suggested a resignation beyond her years. I bet people tell him a-lot. This was not the complaint of a child who felt ignored entirely. It was something more specific. It was the observation of a child who understood that her father had been told repeatedly what the problems were, that the message had reached him multiple times, and that knowing about a problem was apparently not the same thing as fixing it. The conversation deepened. Joseline asked whether Bonnie thinks Stevie is a good dad. The answer came in 2 words that encapsulated an entire emotional architecture. Yes and no. She explained the yes part first. Yes, because he kinda wants to see me, and because he talks to me sometimes. There was something almost forgiving in the way she said it, an acknowledgement of effort that amounted to less than the minimum, but still counted for something. He makes some effort. He makes some attempt to maintain a relationship. That was the yes. Then came the no. And the no was harder because it touched on something more fundamental than presence. It touched on reliability and honesty and whether her father's word meant anything at all. She said no because he kinda lies about his availability. She said he lies about meetings, that he makes excuses, that he says one thing and then his actions don't line up with his words. He goes out instead of showing up. He talks to her afterward.
Already? I bet people tell him a lot.
So do you think he's a good dad?
But the absence had already happened. The lie had already been told. For a 9-year-old to articulate this required paying attention to her father's patterns. It required noticing that what he said wasn't matching what he did. It required the kind of emotional labor that children shouldn't have to do but often do when their parents are unreliable. She had learned the language of disappointment without anyone actually teaching her the words. Joseline took the opportunity to add her own assessment. She told Bonnie that she felt Stevie J falls short on the financial side of things. He doesn't ask if they need money for school or other expenses. He doesn't contribute in that way. Bonnie's response was immediate and unambiguous. That is the problem, she said. Then she confirmed what her mother was saying. Her dad doesn't give them, she said, $1. This was not a complaint about being poor. Bonnie and Joseline were not in financial distress. Joseline had built a career in reality television and other ventures. What Bonnie was describing was a specific kind of failure, the failure of a father to demonstrate through action that he understood he had a responsibility. The money would have been a symbol. It would have said, I know you exist. I know you need things. I know that being your father means contributing to your care. His refusal to give even $1 suggested something else, that he did not feel that obligation in any way that mattered enough to act on it. The conversation shifted to what Bonnie actually wanted from her father. This was perhaps the most important moment of the entire interview, because it revealed what was missing, what her heart was asking for. She acknowledged that her situation with her stepfather, Ballistic Beats, was different because he lived with her and her mother. He had been watching her since she was 3 to 6 months old. He was there every day. That was a particular kind of relationship, the kind that builds through presence. But she also said that this difference should not be an excuse. Just because someone else was there didn't mean her biological father should check out. The difference with Stevie, she explained, was that he doesn't really come more than he's supposed to. He sees her, technically, but not with frequency. Not with the kind of consistency that would demonstrate that he prioritized her in his life. And then she said what she wished, what she was asking for, what her heart needed from him. I just want him to see me more. It was not an elaborate request. It was not a list of grievances. It was not a dramatic plea. It was simply what a child wanted from her father. More of his time, more of his presence, more proof that she mattered enough to be prioritized. The simplicity of that statement carried an enormous weight, because it implied that the seeing was infrequent enough, that it was the thing she noticed most about the relationship. Not the love, not the conversations, but the sheer rarity of being in her father's presence. For context to matter, the history needs to be understood. Bonnie Bella was born in December 2016, the result of a relationship between Joseline and Stevie J that had played out largely on camera through multiple seasons of Love and Hip Hop. Atlanta. The relationship between the couple had been volatile, public, and ultimately unsustainable. When it ended, in 2019, when Bonnie was 2 years old, Joseline had posted on social media that Stevie had not seen their daughter in an entire year. She said he didn't buy her anything for her birthday. He didn't call. The message underneath all of it was the same message that Bonnie would articulate years later with more precision. Showing up matters, and he wasn't doing it. That same year, the custody battle erupted. Stevie sued for custody, claiming that Joseline was engaging in parental alienation, that she was keeping his daughter from him. He said he had traveled to Miami 5 times and been denied access each time. When he came to collect Bonnie for a scheduled visit in July 2019, Joseline took the child to Los Angeles instead to film Marriage Boot Camp. A warrant for her arrest was issued. The machinery of the legal system moved to enforce Stevie's rights. In the footage from Marriage Boot Camp, Joseline learned that a judge had awarded temporary custody to Stevie. She was told that her daughter would go to live with her father. The cameras captured her breaking down, the devastation of losing custody of her child, the fear of what would happen next. I don't know what to do, she said, her voice hollow. But within a relatively short time, the custody situation was resolved. The arrangement shifted again. Joseline and Stevie eventually negotiated a co-parenting situation that worked. They put aside the litigation and focused on Bonnie. Years passed. The immediate crisis faded into background. What didn't change was the fundamental dynamic that had prompted everything in the first place. Stevie could be ordered by a court to pay child support. He could be required to provide visitation and maintain contact. But there was no legal mechanism to force genuine engagement, authentic presence. Those things came from a person's own choice about what to value. By the time Bonnie was 9 years old enough to speak on camera, old enough to understand her own life clearly, what remained of this dynamic was what she articulated to her mother. Yes, there was a father. Yes, there was some level of contact. But no, it was not enough. No. What is striking about Bonnie's assessment is what it does not include. She does not hate her father. She does not reject him. She does not speak with the anger that sometimes characterizes children who feel genuinely abandoned. Instead, there is a strange kind of sadness in her words, a resignation that seems premature for someone so young. She does not demand that he transform into someone different. She simply states what is true. He does not come as much as he should. He makes excuses, and she wishes he would see her more often. The comparison with Ballistic Beats was important and was not meant to be cruel. It was meant to be illustrative. Ballistic had been watching her since she was an infant. He was present daily. He had made the choice to show up, not because a court required it, but because he had committed to her mother, and in committing to her mother, had committed to her. The difference between a father who shows up sometimes and a father who shows up every day is the difference between being someone's child and being someone's priority. Stevie J has not been absent entirely. He has other children, multiple children from different relationships, and by various accounts, he has made efforts to be involved in his family's lives. He is married to Faith Evans and has built a life in Los Angeles. He has a career. The custody arrangement is honored. Child support, or the lack thereof in some configurations, has been adjudicated. From a legal standpoint, the responsibilities of parenting have been handled, but the law does not capture what Bonnie was really asking for. Legal compliance is not the same as love. Paying support or not paying support does not communicate whether you believe your daughter matters. What makes Bonnie's words so powerful is that she is asking for something that ought to be basic and automatic, but somehow is not. She is not asking for wealth or status or any form of extraordinary parenting. She is asking to see her father. She is asking to spend time with him. She is asking him to make her a priority, to demonstrate through his actions that she is important enough to prioritize. 9-year-olds understand their world very clearly. They see the patterns. They notice who shows up and who doesn't. They understand absence, and they understand the difference between absence that is circumstantial and absence that is a choice. Bonnie had learned these lessons. She could articulate them. She could sit on camera and speak plainly about what was wrong with the relationship. Question that her words pose is not directed at her, but at the adults in her life. It is a question about what fatherhood means. It is a question about whether biological connection is enough or whether something more is required. It is a question about whether a person can claim to love their child while consistently demonstrating through their actions that other things matter more. There are no easy answers to those questions, but Bonnie had already answered the one she could answer. She wishes her dad would see her more. She wishes he would be there. She wishes the hours she spends with him were more numerous, more consistent, more real. That is what she wants. That is what, after 9 years of experience, she has learned to ask for. Whether that wish will be granted, whether the message will somehow reach Stevie J in a way that all the previous messages have not, is unknown. What is certain is that Bonnie Bella is growing up with 2 very different models of fatherhood in her life. One is biological and intermittent, and marked by excuses and missed visits. The other is daily and present, and committed to showing up even on the ordinary days, when showing up requires no legal obligation to do so. She will grow up understanding the difference between these 2 kinds of fathers. She will grow up knowing which one mattered more, not because anyone told her that, but because she lived it. She will remember the one who was there. She will remember the one who chose to be there. And she may or may not remember, with any particular clarity, the one who could not seem to make her his priority, despite having 9 years of chances to try.